hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us once again for this second edition of Chat with Chris about his journey towards history's next Top Shot. So, Chris, that was a great episode. Really, lots of interesting things blowing up, nice guns. Obviously, you didn't really shoot a whole lot in this episode, so let's talk about the training session, and that's sort of where we saw you shooting. The first thing that I thought of when I saw that training session was the position that all the shooters were taking. It looked awfully awkward and uncomfortable, just the way people were standing with one arm folded. And is that sort of the standard stance?
Well, there's multiple different stances that you can take, with that weapon, and honestly, it wasn't too bad. When we were leaning the table sort of came up. I don't know, at least on me, it sort of came up to here. And then you saw there were a bunch of sandbags to adjust for height, like Gabby and Michelle needed some sandbags to prop themselves up. But really, once you sort of just lean forward into the gun, it was actually fine. Something that I thought was interesting about the B.A.R. is that it was partially designed to shoot it from the hip. And this is a pretty big gun, both just heft wise and also recoil, but yeah, you're just supposed to sling it around. You're have a sling and then just sort of hold it to your hip and just clear out. So I think the cool thing about the B.A.R. is it's a very versatile and very powerful gun. So it was practice was great.
Is there a lot of recoil? What did you feel like when you first shot that?
It fires a 30-06 round, it's a sizable round. I don't shoot a ton of rifles. I have an AR-15, which is a .223 caliber, so it's on the smaller side. But it wasn't. The recoil was fine. I thought it was really funny to see shooters like Greg Littlejohn on the blue team when he fired. You saw him get kicked back a little bit, but then Gabby or Michelle, who were smaller framed women, they were able to just absorb that recoil, and it really goes to show that technique and practice can really give a competitor an advantage, and it's not just about strength and weight and size.
So you were picked the choice as a top shooter for your team. How did you feel, and did you do anything differently at this practice session?
Yeah, getting picked by the expert was a really great feeling, especially coming out of episode 1 with that plate challenge. Even though I pulled it off for the red team, sort of at a high level, I didn't do very well. Especially in my mind, I was saying to myself, this could have gone either way, and I could have lost it for the red team. So I really need to step up in this next challenge. And so being the expert pick, definitely, it shined a little bit of a spotlight on me, and I was really excited for the team challenge.
Did you feel like your team was looking at you differently because of this pick that you had about being the top shooter?
Yeah, I think so. Whenever, if you look at sort of past seasons of Top Shot, the expert pick, does get, sort of, a little bit more attention, and yeah, the teams, that person's teammates will definitely sort of expect more of that person, and so yeah, I felt really good, and what was interesting to me is I never fired the B.A.R. any automatic weapon ever. And I think there's a little bit of an advantage that gave me where, I didn't have any preconceived notions. I didn't have any training that I needed to undo. It was just sort of, all right, get seated into the weapon and just really apply basic fundamentals of shooting.
Were you surprised by the choice of the blue team made for your teammate to sit out?
So what they didn't show in this episode was a lot of the red team, I'm sure the blue team had some strategy sessions, right, where they were just trying to figure out and sort of plan for the team challenge. So we were definitely ready for the blue team to pick Chee. He's military. They knew that she had been trained in automatic weapons, and so we were ready for the blue team to pick Chee. We had also, I think, had maybe expected them to pick Iggy, since he, well, in the practice, he said, yeah, he raised his hand to say, like, I fired this before. So we were sort of anticipating that they might pick Iggy as well. And something else that kind of goes on behind the scenes is, based off of what the practice session is like, and sort of right, they had us sort of the table was up high, and we sort of try and use those cues just to kind of guess what we think the challenge might be, right? We sort of take the weapon too. We're like, okay, right, this is an automatic weapon, long range, fairly, medium range, really, high-powered rifle. Do we think maybe they're going to make us run up? So actually, one part that you didn't see in the practice was while one shooter was shooting, there was another person in the background literally running in place, running around in circles, elevating their heart rate because we sort of wanted to be ready for, hey, we might be running up to this gun, elevated heart rate. And so, right, and the shooter was done, like the next person would run up. And so, we're red team, we were, just trying to sort of prepare ourselves for what the challenge could be, but we have no idea at that point in practice.
So when the blue team did pick Chee, were you guys, Chee obviously looked very disappointed, but did you guys think, okay, we knew this was coming and we're not really concerned because we were prepared?
Yeah, we were really prepared for that scenario, and then you saw in our little team huddle before the challenge started that, we're going to pick our shooting order, and we'd sort of roughly had an idea of what the shooting order would be based on whether Chee got sat out or Iggy sat out, or I think we maybe had another choice or two of who might have been sat out. So we sort of gamed out those different scenarios.
So take us to that challenge. Your team didn't obviously do too well. You didn't even get a chance to shoot. But as someone who was watching your team go through this, what was going through your mind?
It was super exciting. To kind of basically be living a video game, if you will, to see these, barbed wire, trench warfare, explosions, and just fire, and then obviously add on top of that the challenge and competition aspect of it all was super exciting. And so I was standing in the red team area at the start line, and seeing Augie on the blue team, he started off and he was just struggling, and we, red team, we definitely keyed in on that, and we were talking about it at the start line. We're like, wow, okay, Augie's opening up a door for us here. I think he went through 2 full magazines. Each magazine has 20 rounds in it, and Tim hit his target pretty quickly, and so then Keith jumped on. And I won't walk through everything step by step, but it was I was very anxious to get on the gun and take my turn, and just sort of seeing there was a little bit of sort of back and forth between the red team and the blue team at the beginning, but then the blue team, they just pulled away, and it was it was just so frustrating to not be able to do much other than wait my turn. You saw some of the, or maybe you noticed some of the communication challenges in both trenches, where you've got a spotter trying to help out the shooter. But I think one part where both teams maybe fell a little short was whenever you're spotting, you need to be on the same page as to whether you're calling where your shots are landing or whether you're calling where you need to hold your aim. And so online on the history.com site, there's a little bit of a behind the scenes part where both Tim Treffren on the red team and then a number of people on the blue team talk about, just there were so many cooks in the kitchen. At one point, just a lot of people just trying to help and just talking, and it was confusing. the shooters. So I thought that was interesting to see that play out in real time.
And then when you guys actually lost the challenge, what was the morale like? Obviously, in the first, in the first episode, it was very clear that the red team was extremely united and tight. But in adversity, how did that affect your team chemistry?
Yeah, losing was definitely a huge bummer and a big disappointment, especially red team. We were coming out of a win, in the steel plate challenge, but we had the red team. We had talked about this moment, right, where we, odds are, right, a team is going to go to elimination. We're going to have to deal with this at some point. So, it was really just, honestly, it was very sad also. Kyle, referenced this, after he won the elimination, that, we all spent so much time together, even in that, that even by the time episode 2 came around, we had already sort of been around each other for almost a week. This is like 24 hours a day being around, right, the same people. So, you form a really strong bond, and especially when it's all about sending someone on your own team home. That's not a good feeling, even though, it's sort of everyone moves one step closer to winning Top Shot, right, when someone goes home.
So Kyle goes into the discussions about the elimination and who to put up there and volunteers himself as someone who didn't do as well and so should be set up to go to elimination. How did that make you feel? Any more respect for the guy?
Yeah, I think those nomination discussions can be, little, it can be a little tricky, because you sort of, at least I was asking myself, okay, do I speak up and sort of, put my opinions or, thoughts out there, or sometimes literally just saying nothing and flying low under the radar could be the quote-unquote best tactic. It just sort of depends whether we're talking about self-preservation or whether you're hoping to get a particular, shooter nominated. It just sort of depends. So, for Kyle to, man up and put his head on the chopping block, yeah, I think, he earned, my respect, for doing that. Yeah.
So, some people might think that an opportunity to send someone to elimination might be a good place to weed out some of the weaker shooters on the team. But in the second episode, it seemed like the people that were picked were the ones that didn't perform as well. And I guess the question I have is, people do make mistakes, even the best of them. But is it a better strategy to eliminate the person that screwed up on that challenge, or then is it better to send someone home who's not as good of a shooter? And the blue team seemed to think that the choices you guys made was not the right choice. What do you think?
Yeah, it's obviously, individuals have their own sort of opinions and preferences on this, and so I think it might be helpful to talk about when the competition started. The red team, we sat down and said, okay, let's try and establish some sort of baseline principles for sort of how we want to approach this, approach the competition. And, we had said that we want to vote based on performance on that particular day. And so, and then the worst performers would go. So that's sort of the writing assumption that we all had going into the nomination challenge. On the flip side, some people might think, oh, well, in order to win, you should be knocking out the strongest shooters. So forget whoever was weakest, on that day, like put the best shooters right up against each other, and, that'll knock someone, that'll knock a good shooter out, therefore increase, everyone else's chances of winning down the line. Personally, and I know for the red team, we had the mentality that, we're here to compete against the best. Whoever wins Top Shot should be able to say, you know what, I beat the best out there, And in order to set that up, we should be sending our weakest shooters to elimination. The other dynamic there is, from a team perspective, right, you're only as strong as your weakest link, so it makes sense to send your weakest shooters up against each other, because the stronger shooter will come back, the weaker shooter will go home, and that will increase our team's chances of winning in the next challenge. So that was the red team's mentality for nomination.
All right, so the nomination, I'm sorry, the elimination challenge was absolutely explosive. You have grenades blasting everywhere. Must have been something to watch.
Yeah, man, the Top Shot definitely just they nailed it in this episode. I've never fired a grenade launcher before, and or even seen one fired before, and to be that close. So when Keith's first explosion went off, we were about 50 yards away from him, and on screen you can see the shock waves reverberating off of that first explosion, and like the dirt getting kicked up and the dirt ripples going, and it was loud. It was visually just awesome to watch, and what an exciting it was just such an exciting challenge to see them going two competitors going head to head with grenade launchers is just awesome.
Did it tempt you to go up there and say, "Hey, Colby, may I take a shot with this?"
Yeah, after that challenge was over, we asked the crew and the production people, like, yeah, right, can we shoot that? I mean, that's just totally awesome, and they said no. And after a whole long day of filming, the crew members are exhausted, and they still have more filming to do, so they're just looking to break down the set and finish out the day. So right, to have us to entertain us and let us shoot some fun rounds is not something that they understandably they didn't want to entertain that.
So take us to some of the chemistry in the team. Keith calls Kyle Papa Bear. Papa Bear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that must have been hard for Kyle to then see Keith leave the show.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of friendships and really strong bonds that formed during the competition, and so Kyle and Keith definitely struck up a friendship, and Papa Bear was a nickname that Keith had given Kyle, and and that's sort of what other folks in the house were also calling Kyle, and so man, right, to see those two going to elimination, it's like, right, sending a good friend, home, and pretty sad.
So the blue team seemed like they had their own, own fun. There was some. To talk us through the chemistry in the blue team. I don't know how much time you spent with them, but
yeah, watching the blue team sort of do their thing. There are some strong personalities on the blue team, and I love them all. They're all really great people, and to see you've got like Dylan and Little John and Terry were sort of I don't want to say a clique or anything, but you could tell, hey, right, okay, they're definitely like a little bit closer. Michelle. Definitely also sort of like part of that group, if you will. I guess when you are living in a house with 15 other strangers and you have no TV and no internet and no contact with the outside world, you start keying in on people dynamics, because that's all there is to do while you're sitting around waiting for the next thing to happen. I guess what was going through my mind while all of sort of the people stuff was happening was, how is this going to affect the competition? Will it at all? Do I think it will either help people perform or hinder their performance? Will it affect nominations? And so in my mind, I was just sort of taking in sort of all of those, sort of all of the sort of the cues I was seeing between people interacting, and asking myself, okay, is this useful information as it relates to Top Shot, the competition part of Top Shot?
And then there's Michelle and Dylan doing chest bumps and tickling each other, and I believe they're married or soon to be, not to each other,
right.
but to other people. Were they worried about this stuff getting on national TV and their significant others yelling at them at some point?
So Dylan's married, and Michelle, she's engaged, and we were all very aware that cameras were around us, and filming everything that we were doing and saying, and so it's just them having fun. Right, and it's just another example of, seeing a friendship, happening, in front of our eyes type thing. And yes, right, you could read into it and be like, oh, right, like, are they gonna hook up or whatever? But if you know the backstory, well, that's not going to happen, and Top Shot's not the kind of show that really cares about that.
So let's open it up, Chris, to the
Sure.
to the crowd here and see if they have any questions for you. We also have a Dory, and we'll get to that.
Can I give you an easy one? Okay, so this is a rather frivolous question. First of all, how tall is Colby, anyways?
So how tall is Colby? I think he might be a little taller than me. So I'm 5'9", so he's about 5'10", 5'9", somewhere in that range.
Okay, thank you. That's very important to clear up. But I also had a different question, and forgive me if this has been covered before. But so our challenges, like, what's the time elapsed? Are they done once a day? Are they once a week? I wasn't quite sure.
Sure. Yeah. So we're basically on a 3-day cycle per episode. So episode 1 was abnormal. That's not a typical format for an episode. But for episode 2, day 1 is team practice, right? With whatever weapon. Day 2 in the morning is the team challenge. Then in the afternoon it's the nomination range. And then day 3, the 2 people that got sent to elimination, it's their practice. And then in the afternoon, it's the elimination challenge. Yeah. So there's sort of a fun benefit of, an additional benefit of your team winning a team challenge is that you get that 3rd day off, because you're right, the other team is off doing, the elimination challenge. You're welcome.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Quick question. You guys might have alluded to this last week after the first episode, but I was curious. There's no mention of you working at Google, obviously, on the show for obvious reasons. Was there any talk in the house? Were the other contestants aware that you worked here?
Yeah, good question. So, on TV, they don't use any private companies, right? So it's always just, sort of a generic job title. But, people in the house, knew that I worked, here at Google. And, I didn't want it to be a big deal. I sort of put it out there once and basically said, I work at Google. And if anybody, wanted to ask me about it, I was more than happy to talk about it. But, it's a very different crowd where these are all military people and law enforcement. So we're mostly talking about guns and, military skirmishes. And it was great for me to hear about, our combat veterans' experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, because we don't hear a lot of that, here at Google. There wasn't a lot of technology, talk in the house. So I just enjoyed kind of being in a different environment and getting some different types of stories and conversations.
Here, I have a question. So here in this building, we have a bowling alley, and then in a building not too far away, we actually have an indoor skate park. I was wondering, are you lobbying Google to build an indoor shooting range here on campus at the Googleplex?
Interesting idea. It did not cross my mind yet. Wow, you know, Google does some wacky things like, yeah, bowling alleys and indoor skate parks and bringing, like, you know, outdoor wave pool and stuff. I suppose if there's enough interest, we could petition the powers that be. That's a novel idea. I'll log that in the back of my head.
So we have some online questions here.
All right.
So in retrospect, would you have reversed the order of the red team in the B.A.R. challenge, given that you were selected as the best shooter, but you didn't even get a chance to shoot?
That's an interesting question. I don't think so. So, you know, one of the main reasons why we put Tim Treffern up first, he is a professional hunting guide. So the reason why we put him up first is because he has experience spotting. So we figured he could not only, you know, hit his target by himself without any spotting help, but right, once he's done, he'll be spotting for all the 6 of us for the rest of the challenge. And, you know, then the logic was, well, I was the expert pick, and so that last target is the farthest and hardest target to hit. So that was the logic behind our shooting order. And then sort of everyone in between was sort of roughly based on what we saw in practice.
So Mark wants to congratulate you on being the expert pick with the B.A.R. And
Thanks, Mark.
He says that it brings back memories of Call of Duty. I want to know if you play any first-person shooters, and if you do, how does that help you? How did that rather help you with your Top Shot endeavor?
Great question. So I haven't played any first-person shooters in a long time. It's my experience is like total old school. Started off with GoldenEye on N64, like college days, or actually high school, and then into college. You know, Bond tournaments all the time. That was definitely a you know, great game. Even before that, though, if anybody remembers SWAT, it was a computer game like Daryl Gates, who's the former LAPD chief. It was just a computer game, early like 90s. So SWAT was a lot of fun, you know, and that was my first time ever seeing an MP5, but I mean on a computer screen. And you're basically, you know, simulating being a member of a SWAT team. And the only other first-person shooters, a little bit of Doom. And again, this is like back in the day, and like Duke Nukem, and Duck Hunt on. Oh yeah, definitely like Duck Hunt on, you know, old school Nintendo. Also, there was Gumshoe. Is that the name? I think that was another Nintendo shooting game. And then on like Super Nintendo, there was one game with like a bazooka. Like it was like you actually like had a plastic, you know, bazooka that fired off some, I don't know, laser for the game. But yeah, but I think all my first-person shooter type playing stopped around like 2002 or 2003 when I graduated. I think Halo was maybe, that might have been the last of it. No, but I mean they all look so cool. I mean, I wish I was sort of still in it, but.
So what would be your choice of weapon were you to find yourself in a zombie apocalypse? While this is a humorous question, William here would like to know if, really like to know what your hypothetical answer is, rationale behind it.
So, yeah, this is, let me start off by saying, in preparation for any zombie apocalypse, you should always have actually 3 weapons. You should have a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. That's sort of like standard. But to the question, if I had to choose one, I would absolutely choose a shotgun. And the reason why is because it's versatile. You have multiple types of rounds. You've got buckshot, which are like large BB pellets that are packed into a shell. You've got bird shot, which is like really like tiny pellets that are packed in, and then you've got slugs, basically a 1 ounce just metal chunk that you can just destroy things with. Shotguns can hold anywhere from 8 to 9 rounds, and good for short and medium-ish range engagement. So I would absolutely choose a shotgun for the zombie apocalypse, but I'll also have a pistol and a rifle with me as well.
So I should add then that the CDC, in fact, does have an official plan to deal with the zombie problem, and they do not recommend firearms.
Really?
I don't know any more than that. But.
Huh. I'm not sure I agree with that at all. I know thousands of other people in the world wouldn't agree with that either.
Anyway, so here's a Colby fan.
Okay.
How annoying is it when Colby narrates the challenges, and what do you listen to him, or are you out doing something else when he's talking about things on TV?
So listening to Colby narrate, I really enjoy it. I mean, it looks like what it looks like on TV, but I guess when I was watching seasons 1 and 2, like I said last week, like I would envision myself, being one of the cast, competitors on the show, and just to like hear it live is, it's like I associate his voice with Top Shot, and then I always have a lot of positive, emotions and feelings, with the competition. So I actually really like hearing him narrate, and it actually can help, because while I was sort of looking at the red team doing our thing in the challenge, we can sort of hear him narrating things about what the blue team is doing. So it's like in certain instances it can be a benefit. Or last week in the steel plate challenge, Greg and I, we were, I don't know, maybe 30 feet away from each other, and I'm just trying to focus on my row of plates, but I could hear Colby saying, "Oh, Greg is down to his final plate. Oh, he misses." And if I hear Colby saying, "Oh, he misses," and then I hear my team, also cheering me on. That definitely it's useful information. It's a good confidence boost when I can get information without having to like turn my head and like focus on what Little John or the other team is doing. I can just focus on the task at hand.
Well, great. Here's another question from Mark. Last week you mentioned that they didn't allow you to have any form of entertainment in the house other than interact with fellow competitors. What did you do with yourself?
So the Top Shot house is it's very comfortable. It was August and triple-digit heat, and so here in the Bay Area, it never really gets hotter than maybe high 90s on a freak day. But I'm from Southern California, and like I'm at least when growing up, I'm used to that kind of heat, and it was nice to kind of be back in that. And we would just hang outside, sort of alternate between hanging outside in the heat, sort of enjoying the sun, and then inside it was air conditioned, so we could retreat. But with a lot of free time like that, there's like putt-putt and darts. There's a horseshoe throwing area, and and we just sort of just talk to each other. I think what was really interesting to me about that experience was, a lot of us spend multiple hours a day online on a computer, and we socialize on Facebook, on G+, on Twitter, but it's different when you're socializing with people, right, live, in person, face-to-face. It's a very different dynamic, and for me, like, face-to-face interaction is my preference, and to be in an environment where that is the only choice that any of us have. We can't retreat onto our computers and go onto any social network. So I thought it was refreshing for me to just literally like be unplugged, off the grid, and really like living in the moment. Right? There's no distractions. I don't have my cell phone. I'm not like, I'm bored with this conversation. I'm going to, look at CNN or something on my phone or look at my Facebook feed. It was literally, I'm in the moment, I'm in the here and the now and the present, and whoever is around me, they have my undivided attention. So that was kind of a neat experience to go through.
Did anyone ever walk up to the nomination range and miss their target?
Good question. So yeah, at least in the red team, nomination, nobody missed. Everyone's hit. I think Colby had tweeted a while back that there's only been one miss, and I think it was Adam Benson in season 1, and he missed on purpose, I think maybe, because he was like trying to dot the I on someone's name instead of actually like hitting the target or something. But
I wonder if they'll change their team's vote and who should be sent away.
Right.
Do you have a question?
So thanks in advance for indulging yet another Colby question, but I was very curious as to whether anyone else besides contestants get to shoot, i.e. Colby or maybe some of the production folks. Like, have you ever seen him do his stuff?
Yeah, good question. So I never saw Colby shoot, and basically, like I was saying earlier, when the cast, when we're done, the camera crews, like they've got more work to do, so they're not interested in entertaining like more people shooting, whether it's cast and crew or Colby or crew or Colby. But there is a new show called Top Guns that just started last Wednesday. It's on History Channel 2, or H2 as they're calling it, and Colby does shoot. And it's a cool show where they're basically diving deeper into the historical background of the weapons. And then, Colby shoots, and they bring back former Top Shot contestants and other experts. And it's so they were filming Top Guns at the exact same time that they were filming Top Shot. So they were taking, either one way or another, right? If they were filming Top Gun stuff first, and they would bring the weapons to the Top Shot set, and set it up for our stuff, or vice versa. So that was kind of fun to know. Hey, right, they're filming this other show, and we'll see it soon, or now rather.
So one quick note, the CDC, for their zombie apocalypse site, they don't specifically say anything about firearms. They just don't mention it, so they don't recommend against them. But they do have a previous policy where they think that firearms are completely unsafe or something, which is probably why they don't make any mention of it.
So I guess my question would be, do you think that changed when, do you think that changes whether it's a Democratic or Republican administration?
Good question. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of the rhetorical question.
So I do have a question though. Is there like a Top Shot alumni network that you guys like all stay in touch or keep in touch with any of the previous contestants?
Great question. Yeah. So we have a private Facebook group. It's this Top Shot Alumni. It's just been a lot of fun to connect with previous competitors, and they've been rooting us on, and also sort of giving us some like tips and tricks for sort of like how to handle sort of both the how to handle the attention that a number of us are getting, and I think specifically on like the negative comments, and sort of the haters are always going to hate type thing, and it's been helpful to learn from them and sort of avoid past pitfalls, that kind of thing. Yeah, so Brad Engmann from season 1. So I have a weekly Top Shot viewing party on Tuesdays, and so he actually came to it last week, and I actually met Brad in May of last year at a competition. At that point, I'd already been selected for season 4, but I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. So Brad didn't know who I was, and the thing that was, I think, great about meeting Brad was he really wasn't how he came off in that season. He's a really nice guy. I was having a little bit of a weapons malfunction on a pistol stage that I was going through, and like I didn't ask him. He came up to me and was like, "Hey, like let's sort of let me help you and like find out like what might be going on, with your gun." And so yeah, he was helping me for a good 5-10 minutes and stuff. So yeah, it's been neat to meet Brad and like Jay Lim. I think he was season 2. He and I have been chatting a lot on like Twitter and stuff, and he's from Orange County, which is where I'm from also. So we've been like talking about Orange County stuff, which has been neat too.
All right, thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you shoot the shotgun next week.
Great, yeah. Thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, Tuesday, 10 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you, and we'll be doing this a season 3 or episode 3 Q&A next Thursday as well. Same time, and same place. So,
thank you all.
Great, thanks.